I stared at Blake in disbelief as he knelt before me, holding out a sparkling diamond ring. "Harper, will you make me the happiest man alive and marry me?" My heart raced, and I felt a rush of excitement mixed with nervousness. This was all happening so fast, but I couldn't deny the love I felt for him. "Blake, this is so sudden." "Yes, I will." He slipped the ring onto my finger and we embraced, garnering applause from the other patrons of the high-end restaurant. In that moment, everything seemed perfect, like a fairy tale come true. Little did I know, the fairy tale was about to take a dark turn. A few days later, Blake and I were having dinner at his parents' lavish estate, where I would officially meet his family. I had heard stories about their wealth and influence, and I couldn't help but feel a twinge of anxiety. As we sat down at the table, Blake's mother, Carolyn, fixed me with a scrutinizing gaze. "Harper, what's your highest level of education?" I shifted uncomfortably in my seat. I graduated from a community college while my mom raised me alone." Carolyn's eyes narrowed, and she turned to my mother, Jennifer, who had accompanied me. "You raised her alone?" Jennifer nodded, her posture rigid. "Yes, I'm a single mother. I've worked hard to provide for Harper." Carolyn scoffed, and before I could react, she picked up her glass of wine and flung it at Jennifer, drenching her in the deep red liquid. "Mother, what are you doing?" Blake exclaimed, but Carolyn silenced him with a wave of her hand. "This engagement is over," she declared, her voice dripping with contempt. "Harper is not a suitable match for our family." I sat there, frozen in shock, as Carolyn and Blake's father, David, berated us, their words cutting deeper than any knife ever could. As Jennifer and I made our way out, I overheard Blake's voice from another room. "Compared to Harper, Melanie is perfect. Educated, well-connected, it's a no-brainer." My heart shattered into a million pieces, and a burning rage ignited within me. Without thinking, Jennifer and I burst back into the room, startling Blake and his family. "You'll regret this, Blake," I spat, my voice trembling with fury. "I'll make sure of it." Jennifer's eyes burned with determination as she added, "We'll ruin your precious family's company if it's the last thing we do." With those words, we stormed out, leaving behind a stunned silence. The fairy tale had ended, and a new chapter of revenge was about to begin. The next few days were a blur of anger and humiliation. I tried my best to maintain a professional demeanor at work, but every time I saw Blake, a wave of resentment washed over me. "Harper, can we just act professional?" he had the audacity to ask one day as we passed each other in the hallway. I fixed him with a withering glare. "Don't talk to me. Ever." His face fell, but I couldn't bring myself to care. He had shattered my heart, and his family had treated my mother and me like garbage. Meanwhile, Jennifer was on a warpath, determined to bring down the Turners at any cost. "We need everything on them," she told me one evening over the phone. "Financial records, emails, anything that could be used as leverage." I nodded, though she couldn't see me. They'll never see it coming. With a newfound sense of purpose, I started paying closer attention to Blake's behavior at work. I noticed him taking frequent calls in hushed tones, disappearing for hours at a time without explanation. And then there was Melanie, the woman he had chosen over me. She would strut around the office like she owned the place, always throwing me condescending looks whenever our paths crossed. One day, as I was working late, I overheard Melanie on the phone in the break room. "Don't worry, baby. I'll take care of everything. Harper is no threat to us." My blood boiled at the smug tone in her voice. She had no idea what was coming. Over the next few weeks, Jennifer and I meticulously gathered evidence of Blake's misdeeds. Financial statements that didn't add up, emails discussing shady business deals, even recordings of him bad-mouthing his own family. "They're going to pay for what they did to us," Jennifer said, her voice laced with determination. I nodded, my jaw clenched. The Turners had made a grave mistake in underestimating us. Their perfect little world was about to come crashing down around them. With our plan set in motion, Jennifer and I decided to pay one final visit to the Turners' estate under the guise of returning Blake's engagement ring. As we pulled up to the imposing gates, my heart was pounding with a mixture of anticipation and dread. "Are you ready for this?" Jennifer asked, her expression steely. I took a deep breath and nodded. More than ready. We rang the bell, and a few moments later, the gates swung open, allowing us to proceed up the winding driveway. As we approached the front door, it opened to reveal none other than Melanie, her perfectly coiffed hair and designer outfit a stark contrast to our more modest attire. "Well, well, if it isn't the scorned ex-fiancée and her mom," she sneered, looking us up and down with disdain. Before I could respond, Carolyn's shrill voice echoed from inside. "Who is it, Melanie?" "Just some unwanted guests," Melanie called back, her lips curling into a smug smile. Carolyn appeared in the doorway, her nose turned up in distaste. "What are you doing here?" I held up the ring box, my hand trembling slightly. "I'm here to return the ring," Carolyn scoffed. "Get out of my house." But I stood my ground, feeling a surge of confidence coursing through me. "Not until you hear what I have to say." Melanie rolled her eyes. This should be good. Ignoring her jab, I pulled out my phone and hit play on the damning recordings we had gathered. Blake's voice filled the air, discussing shady business deals and misappropriation of company funds. Carolyn's face drained of color as she listened, her eyes widening in horror. "Blake, what have you done?" As if on cue, Blake himself appeared, his expression turning to one of panic when he saw us. "Harper? Mom, what's going on?" "You tell us, son." David's gruff voice came from behind him. "Care to explain these recordings?" Blake's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water, but no words came out. Melanie, however, found her voice. "Blake, you assured me everything was above board. You lied to me." The tension in the air was palpable as the Turners turned on each other, accusations and insults flying back and forth. In the chaos, Jennifer leaned over and whispered in my ear, "Their empire is crumbling, just as we planned." I allowed myself a small smile, feeling a sense of vindication wash over me. The Turners had brought this upon themselves, and now they were reaping what they had sown. "Good riddance," I muttered, watching as Melanie stormed off, her perfect facade finally shattered. After the explosive confrontation at the Turners' estate, I expected Blake to slink away in shame, tail between his legs. Instead, he had the audacity to show up at the office the next day, acting as if nothing had happened. As I sat at my desk, trying to focus on work, I could feel his eyes boring into the back of my head. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. "What do you want, Blake?" I hissed, whirling around to face him. He held up his hands in a placating gesture. "Harper, I know things got heated the other night, but can't we just move past it, for the sake of professionalism?" I let out a humorless laugh. "Professionalism? After everything you and your family put me through?" Blake's expression hardened. "That's ancient history. Melanie and I have moved on, and you should too." My blood boiled at the mention of his new fiancée, the woman he had chosen over me, only for her to turn on him when the truth came out. "Don't you dare say her name in front of me," I spat. "And don't think for a second that this is over. Your family's downfall is just beginning." Blake's eyes flashed with something akin to fear, but he quickly masked it with a smirk. "Whatever helps you sleep at night, Harper." With that, he turned and sauntered away, leaving me seething. The nerve of that man, acting like he was untouchable. Over the next few weeks, Blake continued to pester me, sending me emails and leaving voicemails, all in the name of professionalism. Each time I deleted or ignored them, my hatred for him growing stronger by the day. Meanwhile, Jennifer and I were hard at work, gathering even more evidence of the Turners' misdeeds. Financial records, incriminating emails, you name it. We were building an airtight case against them, one that would ensure their empire crumbled to dust. And then there was Melanie. The woman who had once looked down her nose at me now seemed lost and adrift, her perfect life in tatters. Part of me felt a twinge of satisfaction at seeing her brought low, but mostly I just pitied her. She had been just as much a pawn in Blake's games as I had. As the weeks turned to months, the walls continued to close in on the Turners. Their once mighty company was hemorrhaging money and clients, and rumors of their shady dealings were beginning to circulate in the media. Through it all, I remained focused and professional, letting my work speak for itself. And whenever Blake tried to engage me, I shut him down with a withering glare or a curt "leave me alone." The time for words was over. Now it was time for action. And Jennifer and I were ready to deliver the final blow that would bring the Turners to their knees. As the weeks passed, my determination to bring down the Turners only grew stronger. Jennifer and I spent countless hours poring over the evidence we'd gathered, looking for any weak spots in their armor. "We need to hit them where it hurts the most," Jennifer said one evening, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Their reputation, their finances, everything." I nodded in agreement. "They'll regret the day they ever crossed us." Meanwhile, at the office, I couldn't help but notice Blake's behavior becoming increasingly erratic. He would disappear for hours at a time, only to return looking disheveled and stressed. I couldn't help but wonder what shady dealings he was up to now. One day, as I was leaving for the evening, I caught sight of Blake in a heated conversation with a man I didn't recognize. Their voices were hushed, but the tension was palpable. "You have to take care of this, Blake," the man hissed. "Your family's reputation is on the line." Blake ran a hand through his hair, his expression one of pure desperation. I know. Just give me a little more time." As they parted ways, Blake caught sight of me and froze, his eyes wide like a deer in headlights. Before he could say anything, I turned on my heel and walked away, my mind whirling with questions. What kind of trouble was Blake in now? And more importantly, how could I use it to my advantage? Over the next few days, I made it a point to keep a closer eye on Blake's comings and goings. I noticed him taking more and more clandestine meetings, always with different, shady-looking characters. It was clear that whatever he was involved in, it was deep and far-reaching, and if my hunch was correct, it could be the key to finally bringing down the entire Turner empire. As I shared my observations with Jennifer, her eyes lit up with a fierce determination. "We need to get to the bottom of this," she said, her voice steely. "No matter what it takes." And so we hatched a plan. We would tail Blake, document his every move, and gather as much evidence as possible about his secret dealings. It was a risky move, but one we were both willing to take. The first few times we followed him, it was relatively uneventful. Blake would meet with his associates, exchange hushed words and cryptic documents, and then go on his way. But then, one night, everything changed. We had been tailing Blake for hours, watching as he bounced from one seedy location to the next. Finally, he pulled up to a rundown warehouse on the outskirts of town. "This is it," Jennifer whispered, her grip tightening on the steering wheel. "I can feel it." We watched with bated breath as Blake slipped inside, disappearing into the shadows. After a few tense minutes, we decided to follow, our hearts pounding in our chests. What we saw inside that warehouse would change everything. After months of meticulous planning and gathering evidence, the time had finally come to confront Blake and his family head-on. With a deep breath, I steeled my nerves and rang the doorbell of the Turner estate, Jennifer by my side. The door swung open, and there stood Melanie, perfectly coiffed as always. Her eyes widened in surprise when she saw us. Well, if it isn't the scorned ex and her mother," she sneered. "Come to beg for scraps." Before I could respond, Carolyn's shrill voice echoed from inside. "Who is it, Melanie?" "Just some unwanted guests," Melanie called back, her lips curling into a smug smile. Carolyn appeared in the doorway, her face twisting into a scowl. "You two have some nerve showing up here." I held up the ring box, my hand steady despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins. "I'm here to return the ring, Carolyn, and to settle some unfinished business." Carolyn scoffed. "Get out of my house before I call the authorities." But I stood my ground, feeling a surge of confidence wash over me. "Not until you hear what I have to say." Melanie rolled her eyes. This should be good. Ignoring her jab, I pulled out my phone and hit play on the damning recordings we had gathered. Blake's voice filled the air, discussing shady business deals and misappropriation of company funds. Carolyn's face drained of color as she listened, her eyes widening in horror. "Blake, what have you done?" As if on cue, Blake himself appeared, his expression turning to one of panic when he saw us. "Harper? Mom, what's going on?" "You tell us, son," David's gruff voice came from behind him. "Care to explain these recordings?" Blake opened and closed his mouth like a fish out of water, but no words came out. Melanie, however, found her voice. "Blake, you assured me everything was above board. You lied to me." The tension in the air was palpable as the Turners turned on each other, accusations and insults flying back and forth. In the chaos, Jennifer leaned over and whispered in my ear, "Their empire is crumbling, just as we planned." I allowed myself a small, satisfied smile. The Turners had brought this upon themselves, and now they were reaping what they had sown. As Melanie stormed off in a huff, her perfect facade finally shattered, Blake rounded on me, his eyes blazing with fury. "You did this," he spat. "You and your mother have gone too far." I met his gaze unflinchingly. "No, Blake. You brought this on yourself with your lies and deceit. It's time to face the consequences." With those words, I turned and walked away, leaving the Turners to their imploding empire. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. The fallout from our explosive confrontation at the Turner estate was swift and severe. Blake's family was in complete disarray, their carefully constructed facade crumbling around them. As the news of Blake's shady dealings and misuse of company funds hit the media, the Turners found themselves under intense scrutiny from the public and the authorities alike. Carolyn and David were forced to make a humiliating public statement, apologizing for their son's misdeeds and vowing to cooperate with any investigations. But even as their empire teetered on the brink of collapse, the Turners remained defiant, lashing out at anyone and everyone they could. Blake, in particular, seemed to have lost all sense of reason. "This is all your fault," he raged at me one day, as we crossed paths in the office. "You and your mother have destroyed everything." I met his gaze coolly, unfazed by his outburst. "We only exposed the truth, Blake. Your own actions did the rest." He let out a bitter laugh. "Truth? You have no idea what the truth is, Harper." Before I could respond, he leaned in close, his eyes burning with a mix of anger and desperation. "You think you've won, but this is far from over. I'll make sure you and your mother pay for what you've done." His words sent a chill down my spine, but I refused to show any fear. "Is that a threat, Blake?" He stepped back, a cruel smile twisting his lips. "Take it however you want, Harper. Just know that no one crosses me and gets away with it." With that ominous warning, he turned and stormed off, leaving me to wonder just how far he was willing to go to exact his revenge. In the days that followed, the Turner family's dirty laundry continued to be aired for all to see. It seemed like every day brought a new bombshell revelation, from shady business deals to illicit affairs and everything in between. And through it all, Blake remained defiant, refusing to take responsibility for his actions. Instead, he doubled down on his threats against me and my mother, making it clear that he wouldn't rest until he saw us suffer. But as the walls closed in on the Turners, a surprising ally emerged, Melanie, Blake's former fiancée. Scorned and betrayed by the man she thought she knew, she had no qualms about spilling every sordid detail of their relationship and Blake's misdeeds. "He lied to me from the start," she revealed in a tell-all interview. "I was just another pawn in his game, a means to an end." As Melanie's revelations hit the airwaves, the public's outrage towards Blake and his family reached a fever pitch. Protests erupted outside the Turner estate, with people demanding justice and accountability. And through it all, I remained steadfast, my resolve only strengthened by the knowledge that we were on the right side of this battle. Blake and his family had brought this reckoning upon themselves, and now they were facing the consequences of their actions. As the dust settled and the Turners' once mighty empire lay in ruins, I couldn't help but feel a sense of vindication. We had fought for what was right, and in the end, the truth had prevailed. In the aftermath of the Turner family scandal, the fallout was swift and severe. Blake's father, David, was forced to resign from his position as CEO of the company, and Carolyn found herself ostracized from the social circles she once ruled with an iron fist. As for Blake himself, he faced a slew of legal troubles, with investigations into his shady business dealings and misuse of company funds. It was a humiliating downfall for someone who had once seemed so untouchable. Through it all, I couldn't help but feel a sense of vindication. After months of meticulous planning and execution, our revenge had been achieved. The Turners' once mighty empire was in shambles, their reputation in tatters. "They got what they deserved," Jennifer said to me one evening, a satisfied smile on her face. "Their empire is crumbling, and it's all thanks to us." I nodded, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. We had fought for justice, and in the end, the truth had prevailed. In the weeks that followed, I found myself adjusting to a new normal. The company I worked for had undergone a major restructuring in the wake of the Turner scandal, and I was transferred to a different department, far away from the toxic environment that had once surrounded Blake and his family. It was a fresh start, and one that I embraced wholeheartedly. Gone were the days of walking on eggshells and dealing with Blake's constant harassment. Instead, I was able to focus on my work and thrive in a supportive, positive environment. As for my personal life, I found myself taking a step back from the dating scene. After the betrayal I had experienced with Blake, I was wary of opening my heart too quickly. But deep down, I knew that one day, when the time was right, I would find someone who truly deserved my love and trust. In the meantime, I poured my energy into my career and my relationship with my mother. Jennifer and I had grown even closer through our shared ordeal, and we found strength in each other's support. "You're an inspiration, Harper," she told me one day, her eyes shining with pride. "You never gave up, even when the odds were stacked against us." I smiled, feeling a warmth bloom in my chest. "I couldn't have done it without you, Mom. We're a team, always." As the months passed, the Turner family scandal faded from the headlines, but the lessons I had learned would stay with me forever. I had seen firsthand the consequences of greed, deceit, and entitlement, and I vowed never to let those toxic traits take root in my own life. Instead, I focused on cultivating patience, discernment, and a strong moral compass. I knew that true happiness and fulfillment could only come from living an authentic, honest life, something that the Turners had clearly failed to grasp. And as for the future, well, the possibilities were endless. With the weight of revenge lifted from my shoulders, I felt free to pursue new opportunities and embrace whatever challenges life had in store. One thing was certain: I would never again let anyone underestimate me or treat me like a second-class citizen. The Turners had learned that lesson the hard way, and I was all the stronger for it.
Thank you for everything until now. I said those words to my husband, handed him the divorce papers, and left the house. My husband is a workaholic who can't do a single thing around the house. Without me, he must be in trouble. You should realize how helpless you are. My name is Layla. I quit my job right after I got married and became a housewife. My husband Nicholas was my former boss, who had a reputation for being quite good at his job. Ever since I started working for Nicholas, he'd been helping me a lot. He was always there for me when I needed support. Eventually, we started going out for drinks. After that, we started dating without telling the company. We told the company when we decided to get married. When I opened up about my marriage with Nicholas, the female co-workers around me were quite envious. Nicholas wanted me to quit the job and become a housewife, so that's what I did. However, once we started married life, Nicholas gradually began to look down on me.
"You're so lucky to be able to eat with just lounging around at home, aren't you? Who do you think you owe that kind of life to? You should be thankful to me."
If I went out on a weekday, he'd always look unpleased.
"Going out for lunch while I'm at work? Who the hell pays for the lunch? Think about it."
I couldn't be bothered to go out with Nicholas in mind, so I gradually grew to stay home more often. Would I spend the rest of my life just sitting at home waiting for Nicholas to come home? No way. I was beginning to think that I couldn't go on like this. With a sense of crisis, I decided to work. But Nicholas wouldn't allow me to work part-time.
"You're going to work? You're not happy with my salary?"
It's not that. I was desperate to clear up his misunderstanding. It just feels so suffocating to stay home all the time.
"You just want to work to take a break from staying at home. Don't you think you are taking the world too lightly?"
He accused me like that. But if I backed down now, nothing would change. I tried my best to persuade Nicholas. Finally, after all my hard work, Nicholas agreed for me to work part-time, on the condition that I would not cut any corners in the housework. I was nervous about working outside the home for the first time in a long time. But it was a refreshing feeling for me since I had always stayed inside the house. I tried my best to do the housework after my part-time job, so Nicholas would not complain. I was exhausted at first, but gradually, I found a pace that was right for me. It was around that time that Nicholas' mother passed away. I told my employer the news and asked if I could take some time off until things settled down, and they graciously agreed. I traveled back and forth between his parents' house and my own to take care of my father-in-law's personal needs and to prepare for the funeral. After the funeral, Nicholas said,
"From now on, you only need to go to my parents' house every other day. You don't have to do the cleaning and laundry every day, right? You can make extra food for my dad so that he would just have to heat it up before he eats."
He seems to be worried that I would neglect taking care of our house by going to his parents' house every day. If I have to take care of my father-in-law every other day for the rest of my life, I wouldn't be able to work part-time anymore. When I complained to Nicholas about this, he responded with a tedious look on his face.
"It's the same with or without one or two part-timers, right? Why don't you ask them to reduce the number of days you have to go? And if they say that it's not possible, why don't you just quit? It doesn't make much money anyway. It's just a way for you to relax."
I had no choice but to reduce the number of days and continue working part-time. I felt bad to have to ask them to adjust so many times. I wish my father-in-law could at least take care of himself. But my father-in-law is stubborn and says that it's a woman's job to take care of the house. He refuses to do any of the cleaning or laundry. And he is very picky about the taste of his food. Even if I cook something for him, he says it tastes too strong or he wants something else. Thanks to this, on the days I went to my father-in-law's house, I often came home late. One day, my father-in-law said that he didn't want to eat stew 2 days in a row, so I made him another meal and thus, I came home very late.
"You're so late. What are you doing? Where's my food?"
Nicholas, who had already come home, shouted angrily. "I'm sorry. Your father wanted something else to eat, so I had to make another meal again in a hurry. I'll get dinner ready right away." I served the stew I brought back to him.
"What the hell? You promised you'd take care of the house like you've always done, right? If this happens again, I will have you quit your part-time job."
Wait a minute. The reason I'm late is because I was at your father's house. This has nothing to do with my work.
"Shut up. You can't afford to get dinner ready because you work part-time. Don't make me wait for you after I'm tired from my work day."
I didn't agree, but I knew he wouldn't listen to my arguments. I continued to sleep less to do housework, take care of my father-in-law, and work part-time. Then one day, I received a rare phone call from my mother. "Layla, your father has been diagnosed with a disease, and he's going to be hospitalized." She said that my father's cancer was spread pretty badly, and that it was already beyond treatment. I wanted to come over right away, but Nicholas wouldn't take me up on it at all.
"What can be cured can be cured, just because you went to visit him. You've got to take care of the house."
I had no choice but to leave work early to visit my father. It was 6 months later that my father took his last breath. I made arrangements for the funeral on behalf of my mother, who was too shocked to do anything, and told my husband the date of the funeral.
"So, you will be back by the time I get back, right?"
He asked me coercively.
"I don't want to have to wait for dinner again like I did the other night, okay?"
"What? You're going to attend the funeral too, right?"
"Huh? Of course I can't. It's a weekday, right? I have to work.
My father passed away. Shouldn't you be able to take the day off for bereavement leave?
Well, technically it's possible. But I have an important meeting. I can't take the day off that easily.
Easy? When a family member dies, your priority is to send them off, right? After your mother passed away, I had to take days off in addition to bereavement leave. And even now, I have to work less, you know. Nicholas snickered when he heard those words.
Don't compare your part-time job to my job. I have more responsibility than you will ever understand. I can't just take a day off like you work for fun.
I persisted, and he finally relented, as if it was too much trouble to talk back.
I will take a half day off if you insist.
With that, Nicholas forcefully ended the conversation. I had to go to my parents' house more often to prepare for the funeral, and I had to take more days off from my part-time job. I visited my father-in-law every 3 days, and I only could do housework for our house every 3 days as well. Nicholas became even more unsatisfied.
Hey, you've been slacking on the housework lately, haven't you? You haven't cleaned the house for the last 2 days.
That's because... I tried desperately to explain to him. 2 days ago, I was at my parents' house from morning till night helping my mother. And yesterday I was at your father's.
An excuse again? My dad's a man, so it's natural that you need to go do the housework for him. Your mother has been doing chores until now, right? What else is there to do for her?
She's so shocked by what happened that she doesn't have the energy to cook by herself. And preparing for the funeral is a burden for her to do alone. I just want to be there for her as much as possible. He told me that I was far too soft on her.
Your father didn't die suddenly either. I'm sure she was prepared for it from the moment he was diagnosed. And yet, she was so shocked that she can't do anything on her own. She's so naive to not think about the future. Why are women like that?
How can you? Even if she knew his future was short because of his illness. Her husband of many years passed away, you know. You at least understand how my mother feels, don't you?
I'm telling you to accept the reality. He should have better prepared for his passing. It's irresponsible of him to go off on his own without training his wife.
That's no way to talk about them. Don't you have any respect for my family? Nicholas looked at me, quietly angry inside, and said in a mocking tone,
What part of your family do I have to respect? If I have to respect them just because they are older, isn't the thought of that naive?
I can't believe he would even say something like that, not only about my mother, but also about my father who died after a battle with illness. It was at this point that I completely gave up on Nicholas. Enough. I don't want to talk to this man anymore. Just being in the same space bugs me. I started preparing to leave the house quietly, disguising it between helping for the funeral preparation. I moved my belongings into my parents' house little by little so that he wouldn't notice. It was painful to tell my mother about my current situation, since she had just lost her husband. But I couldn't take it anymore. I told my mother that I'm having difficulty getting along with Nicholas, and that I want to leave house to return to my parents' house. My mother consoled me by saying, "You've worked very hard, Layla. If you want to come home, you're more than welcome. I won't be so lonely with you here." Thank you, Mom. I think it's better for you to be free of Nicholas than pushing yourself to live together. I'm sure you will find happiness in your new life without Nicholas. With these words from my mother, I was ready to leave the house. After that, I was mindless at home and perfectly took care of my father-in-law. I am only a few days away from being free from my husband. As long as I did the housework properly, Nicholas never complained, and we didn't need to have unnecessary conversations. The day of the funeral, Nicholas went to work that day without even saying goodbye. So Nicholas did decide to go to work. My mother was disappointed. Even though she's heard about it from me, she thought he would take a day off from work at least for a time like this. That's what she was hoping for. Do you understand now? He's like that. In response to my cold remarks, my mother responded with, "If that's the case, I guess it can be helped." We were once again convinced that I had made the right decision in divorcing Nicholas. After the funeral, Nicholas returned from work as usual.
"I'm home."
"Oh, you're back." Nicholas yelled at me as I answered him curtly.
"You're back? Is that all? Whose fault is it that I had to take half of the day off today? You should thank me first."
"Thank you?"
"Yeah, that's right. Your family interfered with my work. Now say it."
Nicholas was sprawled out on the couch, waiting for me to say something. I'll bow to him. "Thank you for everything until now."
Yes. You should have been humble like that from the beginning. Then I wouldn't have said anything either. Huh? What did you just say? Until now? What do you mean?
I immediately passed him the divorce papers as he looked puzzled.
What? Divorce papers? What does this mean?
It means exactly what it says. Divorce. Then Nicholas suddenly burst into laughter.
Ha ha ha! You can't live without my money. What are you talking about? If you've got time to joke around like this, get on with making my meal.
I'm serious. I'm leaving here and going to live at home with my mother. My mother has agreed as well. I have some money saved up from my part-time job. They're even considering making me a full-time employee if I agree.
What? A full-time job? An idiot like you?
Well then, I handed the divorce papers to Nicholas and left home with one briefcase in my hand. When I arrived at my parents' house, I fell asleep while talking with my mother about the hardships I had gone through and the memories with my father. After that, Nicholas tried to contact me several times, but I ignored all of them. The messages were still supercilious.
You're an unfit wife to leave your husband like that. If you apologize and come back, I will forgive you this time.
It's no wonder I'd had no interest in replying to his messages. Even if I ignored the messages, Nicholas never came to my parents' house. He would have been too proud to pick up his wife himself. Thanks to him, my mother and I were able to lead a peaceful life. A few days later, I realized I had forgotten something and sneaked back home while Nicholas was at home. Looking at the house after a few days, the house was in a terrible state. The house was covered in trash and this, and there was no place to walk. The kitchen was littered with delivery food trash, and wrinkled clothes were all over the floor. I had expected this, but it seems that he does not do any housework at all. Come to think of it, I wondered how his father was doing. I became curious and wandered around Nicholas' parents' house. There, I came across my father-in-law and the owner of the house talking at the entrance. Apparently, the neighbors had complained about the strange smell coming from his room, which had been turned into the garbage dump.
If the situation doesn't improve, you're going to have to leave. All right, I will go to my son's place then.
That's what my father-in-law told the owner of the house. His son's place? Even if he goes to Nicholas' place, it's just one more man who can't take care of the housework. I think it's just adding more garbage. According to what the neighbors told me after that, he apparently packed up his stuff and went to stay with Nicholas. But Nicholas refused his father to move in, and had a small fight. The neighbors were unhappy over their argument, and Nicholas had no choice but to give in. It was good that they decided to live together, but as expected, Nicholas' house was trashed, and there was a strange smell in the neighborhood. Nicholas started going to work in a wrinkled, dirty shirt. His reputation among the people around him has been declining rapidly. Finally, there was even talk of a demotion, and Nicholas came me to apologize.
Layla, I'm sorry.
Nicholas, he finally understood. That's what I thought.
Are you done now?
He said it like he was belittling me.
I apologize for once. Just get yourself in a better mood and come back.
Nothing had changed. What the hell are you apologizing for?
Huh? What are you talking about?
It wasn't a performance with no feeling, was it? Nicholas fell silent at my calm tone. Please go home alone. I have no intention of returning to that house.
But the house is a mess without you. I even have to take care of my dad.
I knew you would say something like that. The only reason you want to take me back is so I can take care of you and your dad. Isn't that right?
No, well...
I know you think you're a good worker. But no matter how good you are at your job, if you can't take care of yourself, you're no better than an elementary student.
What? What? How dare you talk to your husband like that?
You're not my husband. Ex-husband, because I'm divorcing you. So we are strangers now.
Wait a minute. I'm not divorcing you.
I'm not your slave, so shut up. You always look down on all housewives. An old-fashioned man like you should be buried in a stinking garbage dump with your father. Don't ever come near me again. You're just a lousy man who has nothing better to do than to be bossy. I drove Nicholas away angrily and immediately locked the house. I turned around and my mother applauded. Well said. I then moved on to divorce settlement. Fortunately, the negotiation for the full-time position went smoothly. I will be able to earn enough money to live with my mother. My mother, who had been depressed after the loss of my father, is gradually regaining her energy now that I have come back. She and I are enjoying our life together now. According to the lawyer, Nicholas and my former father-in-law are still living in that dump. They are looked down upon by the neighbors as a father and son who can't even take care of themselves. Because of the garbage, Nicholas can't sleep well and is always short of sleep. As a result, he has trouble concentrating and made an unforgivable mistake at work. He was forced to resign from his job to take responsibility. Now that they can no longer afford to hire a housekeeper, they do not have a bright future ahead of them. Now I feel like a fool for trying so hard to please Nicholas. I'm very happy to have escaped from the life of putting up with so much. From now on, I will live my own life to the fullest.
Hospital? Don't be ridiculous. Get your ass out of the hospital, even if you have to crawl back home. You're the housekeeper. My husband suddenly yelled at me on the phone. I was hospitalized with a high fever. For my husband Louis, no matter what the reason, the mere fact that he doesn't have a wife to do the housework is cause for anger. I usually do all the housework, but still, all he does is complain. And then when I get sick, instead of worrying about me, he gets upset. How narrow-minded is the man I married? I was deeply disappointed in myself for having chosen such a man as my husband. But it seems I was not the only one who thought so. When my mother-in-law heard my husband yelling, she said to me with a straight face. Your nightmare ends here. Now, let's start fighting back. My name is Violet, a 35-year-old mom with a 1-year-old son. I work as a medical secretary at a hospital. My husband's name is Louis. I met him on blind date. My co-worker invited me to. We started dating right after. A few months after we got married, I got pregnant and I had a son, Eli. My life is pretty good, but recently, I'm having a major problem within the family. That is my relationship with my husband, Louis. He has been a dependable and sweet guy, and even after Eli was born, he was very supportive in raising our child, feeding him milk, changing his diapers and such. However, raising a child requires money. We have to work hard and save money for our son. But my husband doesn't like the idea of me going back to work. When I told him I wanted to leave Eli at daycare, he gave me a disapproving look. What? Daycare? He just turned 1. But I'm thinking about the future, and I think I should work too. I want him to be able to do all the things he wants to do. I don't care about that. If he can finish high school and college, that will be enough. What? Even so, I think it's better to be prepared for all kinds of situations. If that's the case, let him give up. It's his fault. He's not smart enough. You are a housewife. You should just take care of the house. But, oh no. My husband yelled at me and showed his anger. I wanted to give my child the best environment possible. Was I the only one who thought that way? However, my husband is an ordinary businessman. He doesn't get paid well. Since I retired after giving birth to my son, we can no longer afford to save. After 6 months of talking about these circumstances over and over again, I succeeded in convincing my husband. I was able to return to work full-time. But the real hell started from there. After I started working, my husband's behavior changed drastically. Whenever I prepared a meal, he would sarcastically tell me that the food was too strong tasting, too bad to eat, and so on. Not even a winkle in the laundry was tolerated. If there is even a speck of dust or hair on the floor, he's in a bad mood for a few days. The only thing that saved me was that he was a good father to my son. He would play with Eli or even bathe him when he came home from work. But no matter how good his mood is, his attitude towards me never changes. And this happened the other day. I was working overtime and got home a little late. I picked up my son from daycare and rushed home. My husband was waiting for me with a devilish look on his face. I'm home. Sorry, I'm late. Sorry? Is that all you can say to me? My husband was super angry at the door. Why do you come home later than me? I said I'm sorry. I had a lot to do at work. Don't make excuses. Why are you so bad at everything? You should have stayed home and focused on the housework. But the household situation is getting better because we both work, right? Don't talk back. You do as I say. Hey, lower your voice. Eli can hear you yelling. Even though he's still 1, I didn't want him to see his father yelling. But ever since that day, my husband's been yelling at me in front of him. Every time he came home from work, if he didn't like something, he would throw things and takes his anger out on me. He is away from home on his day off, so that was the only time I could spend with my son in peace. My son can't speak or understand the situation yet. I didn't want him to hear our arguments. Then one day, I woke up in the middle of the night, and my husband was not there. He went to bed before me last night. Did he go to the bathroom or something? I went back to bed and waited for a while, but there was no sign of my husband coming back into the room. I was worried, so I got out of the bed and went to the living room. The living room lights was on, and I found my husband sitting on the sofa. He was on the phone with someone. He had his back on me, so he wasn't aware that I was there. I was about to open the living room door. You know what? I can't wait to get divorced. Divorce? That's what he said. I took a breath and decided to wait and see. My wife? She's sleeping. She doesn't work that hard, but she sleeps a lot. She's not good at housework either. I don't know why I married such a loser. I can't wait to get divorced and be with you. A lot of heartless, horrible words stopped my heart. When I realized, tears were falling from my eyes. He keeps dissing me like that. Is he cheating on me? Divorce me. What about Eli? I went back into the bedroom without saying a word to my husband. I put a blanket over my head and fell asleep again. The next day was a weekend, so my husband went out in the morning. Now that I think about it, maybe he had been going out on weekends because he was meeting someone he was having an affair with. I'm not talking about weekends only. Overtime work and drinking sessions. I wonder if he was just making up excuses for everything and making time for his lover. The more I think about it, the more I think it was true. What if he really was cheating on me? What will happen to Eli? Suddenly, I was overcome with anxiety, and just like last night, I began to cry involuntarily. That's when it happened. The intercom rang, and I came to my senses. I opened the front door to find my mother-in-law standing there with a gentle smile on her face. Long time no see, Violet. I missed you. Oh, hi. Good to see you. But what's up? You used to come over to our house, but you got busy with your job, didn't you? And I wanted to see baby Eli, so I came to visit. I see. Thank you. I'm sorry it's been a while. It's okay. Raising a child while working full-time must be hard. You're a great mom, Violet. My mother-in-law's words of encouragement brought tears back to my eyes. Then she, perhaps hearing the sound of me sniffing, talking to me in a concerned tone. What's wrong, Violet? Something happened? No, I'm fine. You're not fine? Tell me what's wrong. All right, I'll make you some tea first. Here, I brought some cake. Let's eat it together. My mother-in-law stood in the kitchen for me and makes some tea. She puts the cake on the plate and offered it to me quietly. Something must have happened, right? Violet, is it about Luis? Well, I knew something must have happened, since you didn't come to our house lately. Violet, you can tell me anything. My mother-in-law gently held my hand and looked straight at me. I didn't want to tell her about her son's infidelity, but I was already at my limit. Actually, I think Luis is having an affair. An affair? Is he cheating on you? Yes, probably. I heard them talking on the phone last night. He said he wanted to divorce me. What? I'm gonna talk to him right now. Where is he? I don't know. And even if I question him now, I don't have any proof. Proof? Yeah, I just found out yesterday. So I don't have any proof. When I look at the sofa, my son was sleeping peacefully. I didn't want him to hear about the divorce, even if he didn't know what it meant. My mother-in-law, on the other hand, had been giving me a difficult look. Then she looked up, as if she had just thought of something. All right, Violet. All you have to do is gather evidence. What? Gather evidence? But I've got work to do. And Eli's with me. I don't have time. That's okay. We'll leave it to the professionals. Professionals? Yes. I have a friend who got divorced because her husband cheated on her. She said she hired a PI. So, I'll ask her for more details. Really? That'll be great. My mother-in-law encouraged me to do so. And a few days later, I decided to request a background check on my husband from the agency she told me about. I asked my mother-in-law to keep this matter quiet until I got the detailed results. A week later, I went to the detective agency to pick up the result. The result was, of course, exactly what I predicted. Shortly after confirming my husband's infidelity, I collapsed at work. My colleague took me to the hospital, where I found that my fever was over 104. I'd been feeling lightheaded for a while now, but I had no idea it was this bad. I called my mother-in-law. She said she would pick up my son from daycare and take care of him at her house. After that, she showed up in the hospital room. Violet! Are you alright? I heard you have a high fever. I'm sorry to bother you. I'm okay. Oh my gosh, you must have been exhausted. You need to rest now. As my mother-in-law was laying me down, my phone buzzed in my bag. I asked my mother-in-law to pick up the phone. It was from my husband. When the call came in again, I picked it up and turned on the speaker. The sound of my husband's yelling echoed through the room. In contrast to my shaking shoulders, my mother-in-law's face was stained with anger. I had to show my mother-in-law what my husband was really like. I continued my conversation with him. I'm sorry, I'm in the hospital.
What? Why? What about the housework? Why the hell are you in the hospital anyway?
Actually, my fever is over 104, and I have to stay in the hospital for the night. So,
don't be ridiculous. Staying at the hospital for a fever? Are you kidding me?
But the doctor told me to rest today.
Shut up. Go get your ass out of the hospital, even if you have to crawl back home. You're the housekeeper.
He said that and hung up the phone. At the moment, I felt that my feelings for my husband had completely gone. I have no more feelings for him. I didn't need to worry about divorce after he'd said all the things he wanted to say to me. My mother-in-law seemed to have understood my decision. She looked at me and gave a small sigh.
What a scumbag. I'm ashamed he's my son.
I'm sorry things turned out this way. No, you don't need to apologize.
I'm glad I learned about my son's true nature. Now, I can join you in your revenge without hesitation.
Oh, really?
Yes. Your nightmare ends here. Come on, Violet. Now, let's start fighting back.
My mother-in-law handed me with divorce papers. She must have gotten it on the way to the hospital. I signed it right there and prepared for the divorce. My mother-in-law agreed to stay with me at the hospital that day. I decided to rest for the time being. My husband kept calling me, but my mother-in-law told me to ignore him. The next day, my fever went down, and I was able to leave the hospital. I went to my in-laws' house where my son was waiting. My mother-in-law had already told my father-in-law what had happened. We all called my husband that night. A few hours later, just as I was putting my son to bed, my husband arrived at my in-laws' house. My parents-in-law and my husband are sitting across from each other. "Mom, Dad, what's going on?" My husband played the gentle son as usual. When I showed up, he frowned for a moment, but his smile returned immediately. "Hey, Violet. I'm sorry I couldn't come get you in the hospital. I've been busy with work, you know." I sarcastically replied to him. "Work? You were having an affair, weren't you?" "What? What are you talking about? I would never do such a thing. Don't be silly. In front of my parents." "Do you really think the excuse will work now?" "What's the matter, Violet? Are you mad at me?" "I know you were having an affair. Here's the proof." I took the photos I got from the agency and laid them out in front of my husband. As soon as he saw them, his smile instantly disappeared. "What the hell is all this stuff doing here?" "I hired a detective agency to look into it, and they found all of this evidence." No. This is just for fun. I mean, it's not serious. Trust me." "For fun?" "Yeah, it was just a fling, you know. Even my dad cheated on my mom once or twice. Right, Dad? It's normal for a man." My husband tried desperately to get his in-laws to agree, but all they would give him were icy stares. His face gradually turned pale and his voice began to tremble. "Violet, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I cheated on you. But I was lonely, and you were always talking about Eli. What are you apologizing for? Do you think I'm mad at you for cheating on me? You're not?" I'm sick and tired of everything about him. He's got his weird smile on his face, and he's reaching for my hand. I shook his hand off as hard as I could and said to him, "I don't give a damn about your affair. What hurt me the most was the abuse I received on a daily basis. You treat me like I'm your housekeeper. I don't need an apology for cheating. I don't care. I just wanted a normal family. I guess you don't even know what that means." "Hey, Violet, calm down." "Huh? Calm down? What the hell you can say to me to calm down? Whose fault is it that we are in this mess? It's all your fault. Your parents know all about what you've done to me. All of us here will never forgive you, no matter what. And I will do whatever it takes to push you over the edge." My husband fell to his knees, clutching his head and screaming in agony. I confronted him with the divorce papers and demanded his signature. He quietly fell to signing the papers, as his parents were there. After that, my son and I decided to stay with my in-laws until we found a new place. In between visits to the lawyer's office, I demanded the lump sum of alimony from him and his partner. Eventually, I rented an apartment near my work and moved in with my son. I still keep in touch with my in-laws and have dinner with them regularly. I don't think I will ever see my ex-husband again, but my son has his grandparents. They seem to feel the same way and are very protective of my son. I would like to continue to have a good relationship with my in-laws.
After giving birth to twins, My husband told me to be a housekeeper for him and his mistress, but he doesn't know.
I only married you because of your looks. I'm not interested in you now. After the pregnancy, you got ugly day by day. My loving husband cruelly told me when I came home after giving birth to the twins. All the things I had shared with him, all the memories we shared, all of it just crumbled away. He simply cut me off, as if I was no longer of any value to him. After the birth of my children, I was left with only one task: to be his housekeeper. My husband threatened me with the divorce if I refused. I was deeply disappointed in him. I've had enough of this. I will tell the truth to this selfish husband right here, right now. I wonder how he would react when he finds out everything. I smiled to myself quietly. My name is Lauren. I got married 6 years ago with my husband Brody. When we first got married, my father lent me a plot of land in his name. He also left me $50,000 to put a down payment on a house. He was so happy that I got married. We decided to use the money as a down payment and build a house on the land. We both had enough money saved up, and our monthly income was fine. We decided to build a custom-built house in my husband's name, not a house for sale. 6 years have passed since our marriage, and I am carrying 2 babies in my tummy. After 4 years of fertility treatment, we finally blessed with our children. We were told that both of them would be boys. As an only child, having a brother or sister was an unknown world to me. I am now in a stable period and a 6-month pregnant. At first, my husband and I had planned to get all the baby stuff together as soon as possible. But I'm not ready for that yet, because my husband says he is busy at work. He seemed to be working overtime almost every day. If I don't get the baby stuff within the next month, I wouldn't be ready until I go back to my hometown to have the babies. I knew I was running out of time, so I decided to ask my husband firmly. Recently, he comes home from work after 11 p.m. I usually go to bed before he does, but I rubbed my sleepy eyes and waited for him to come home. Finally, at 11:30 p.m., I heard the front door open. My husband appeared in the living room, and I immediately started talking to him. "Welcome home, Brody." "Hey, what is it?" "I'm tired." "We need to get all the baby stuff together soon. I don't have much time. I'm going home next month, remember?" "I'm busy. You can do it on your own." "What?" "We talked about going to the store together." "I said I'm busy. You're on maternity leave, and I'm struggling to make ends meet." "But I took maternity leave early, but it's not because I don't want to work. Since it will be twins, it is only natural to prepare carefully and early. Even my husband knows that I have to go back to my parents' house in a few weeks. I wonder if he can't even make time for just one day. I understand that he's busy, but when I think of our unborn children, I can't afford to be sloppy in my preparations. Normally, I would have given up, but on this day, I was different. Please, Brody, just one day." "I told you I'm busy." "Now, shut it." "Why? Why did you suddenly become so busy? You've been working overtime every day. You've even started working on weekends." "That's..." "What? Can you tell me the reason?" "You make it sound like it's my fault." "I didn't say that. I'm just asking why you were so busy." "Shut up." I'm not going anyway. You know, there's the internet and everything. Then he pulled a couple $100 bills out of his wallet and slammed them on the table. Take that money and buy baby stuff. I was sad and angry at the same time by his heartless comment. If he can't do what I'm asking him to do, there's no point in talking to him anymore. I gave up going with him and asked my mother to accompany me shopping in my hometown. A month later, on the day of the trip, my husband was at work. When I first found out I was pregnant, whenever I visit my parents, he always drove me there. But this time, he said he couldn't because he was busy. I had no choice but to call my father to come and pick me up. In the car on the way to my parents' house, my father opened his mouth a little angrily.
Brody was going to give you a ride home, wasn't he?
I didn't know what to say. I heard he's been busy with work lately.
Your mother told me you were going shopping for baby stuff with her, right? You were going to get it with Brody, weren't you?
I told you he can't. He's busy.
Even if he's busy with work, he could at least go shopping, you know?
I've asked him many times too, but he's just said he doesn't have time.
I see.
My father still looked like he wanted to say something. I didn't want to talk about my husband anymore, so I turned my attention outside. I guess he knew how I felt. He drove me home without saying a word. A few months later, I gave birth to twins. I'd been in the care of my parents for 2 months. Today is the day I go back to my husband's after a long time. I can finally take my children and go back to my life with my husband. Normally, I would be happy to see him today, but my feelings were indescribable. There was a heaviness in my heart because my husband never once came to see me to my parents' house. Not only during my pregnancy, and even after our sons were born. Not even for a single day. I tried to contact him many times. His response was, "I'm busy. I don't have time to come over." I was beyond angry. Even my parents were furious. So my parents contacted Brody several times, but he never responded. In the car on the way home, my father became a little irritated and broached the subject. "If you go back to Brody and think it's impossible to live with him, you can call me any time. I'll come and get you." Thank you, Dad. I'm glad you said that.
You're the one who chose him, and I don't want to think he's too bad of a guy. But Brody's attitude is unforgivable. I'll have a little chat with him when we get home.
Okay, but I don't know if he'll be there.
I don't care. Let me wait with you until he gets home.
Thank you, Dad. I'd appreciate it. I'm sure Brody will change his attitude a little if he got a direct order from my dad. With this faint hope in my heart, I returned home with my father. I came home for the first time in months. When I inserted the key into the keyhole of the front door, then I felt a strange sensation. It wouldn't go all the way in. No matter how many times I tried, I couldn't get the key all the way in. Fortunately, the lights were on. I know that my husband is already home. So I pressed the intercom and hear a woman's voice. As I stood there, the front door opened. A strange woman came out of the door. She looks puzzled and called out to me. "Excuse me? Who are you?"
This is my house."
"What? My husband bought this house about 2 months ago."
2 months ago?
I was shocked that I couldn't help but raise my voice. She reacted as if she had just thought of something. Ah, are you Brody's wife, by any chance? Yes. How do you know my husband? My husband bought this house from Brody, a senior colleague of his at work. What do you mean he bought it? We had a baby last year, and we didn't have time to move. We're thinking of building a house, and Brody gave us a reasonable price. We paid $50,000 in one lump sum, and the rest will be paid in installments. Well, of course you know that because you're his wife. I'm sorry. My father and I looked at each other. We knew it was more than just a coincidence. The couple, Mr. and Mrs. Patterson, were kind enough to let us have some time. I immediately called my husband and asked him to explain the situation. Hey, Brody, what the hell is going on? Oh, you're back. My husband sounded annoyed over the phone. You, housekeeper. Skipping chores, leaving the house for a long time. Cut the crap. Just explain to me why someone else is living in our house. Did you sell it? Are you crazy? What? It doesn't matter. The house is in my name. Huh? Where the hell are you, anyway? I'm staying at Hilton with my girlfriend. Girlfriend? Yeah. I just sent it to you. Look at the picture. Attached to the message on my phone was a picture of my husband cuddling with a young woman. For all intents and purposes, they are as close as lovers can get. I still can't wrap my head around this situation, and he confronts me with an unforgiving reality. Look, I only married you because of your looks. I'm not interested in you now. After the pregnancy, you got ugly day by day. What? Are you serious? Yeah. That's why I started having a relationship with her. You started getting fat and bloated. Anyway, I'm going to live with her. And you are going to be my housekeeper from this day forward. Housekeeper? Are you kidding me? I'll send you my address. Come here quickly. He hung up the phone and sent me the address of the hotel. You've got to be kidding me. At the moment, I felt an inexpressible anger flare up like a flame. My father's face, who was listening to the whole thing, was burning too. I could see his body trembling with anger. Mrs. Patterson looks at us with a curious gaze. I called out to her to tell them the truth. Excuse me, is your husband here? Yes, he is. I'd like to talk to him. Could you go get him? Okay, one moment please. After that, I showed him the photos my husband had sent me and explained the situation. Apparently, my husband's affair partner was a colleague at the same company. Mr. Patterson was deeply surprised. When he was furious and said he could not forgive my husband, his wife was the same. As a parent with a child, they can't forgive what my husband did, they said. When I was about to contact my husband again, he called me just in time. I took a deep breath and pressed the answer button. What? He yelled through the phone. Hey, you're gonna keep me waiting forever. Get your ass over here and cook us dinner. I tell him calmly. I'm not going to be your housekeeper. What? I'm offering you a job here. To be my housekeeper. If you don't like it, I'll divorce you. You don't know anything. What? What do you mean? What don't I know? The Pattersons are suing you. What? As soon as he heard the word sue, my husband turned weak. He sounded anxious, and I told him the truth. Suing? Why? Because you deceived them. What are you talking about? I didn't deceive them. I just sold them a house in my name, at a discount. Yeah? You sold the house? But what about the land? What? No way. The land. Remember? This land doesn't belong to you. It's in my father's name. The only reason we haven't had to pay for the land so far is that my father owns it. So if you and the Patterson's family want to live here, you'll have to pay for the land every month. Did you explain that to them? My husband's voice is inarticulate as I explain the situation. Perhaps he's not quite grasping the situation, so I carefully break down what I had told him so that even he could understand. My father said he will charge you for the land if someone else lives in the house. But the Pattersons never heard that from you. They said that when they bought the house, the land was never mentioned. Well, There's only one solution here. Either you buy the land from them, or you can pay for the land. By the way, they said they would sue you if you don't pay for the land. For fraud. You know, fraud? No, wait a minute. I don't have that kind of money. You got your $50,000. That'll pay for a while. I can't afford it. I've already spent all the money on the hotel and vacationed with my girlfriend. Please, Lauren, do something. Ask your father to give the land to the Pattersons for free. Even after all this, he's still trying to get by, taking no responsibility. He's still trying to use me to save his ass. I'm so disgusted with him that I can't speak. As I fell silent, my husband continued to plead with me. Hey, are you listening to me, Lauren? I'll leave her. I'll help you raise the kids. So please, ask your father to do something about it. Look, your husband's asking for help. Do something. If he had come to see me and the twins just once, it might have changed the outcome. But instead of coming to see me, he sold the house on his own. He used the money to stay at a luxury hotel with the woman he cheated on me with. And he treated me like a housekeeper after the babies were born. I have no sympathy for such a person. I fought back in anger that was rising in me and vented my resentment. You son of a bitch. You want my help? Who the hell do you think you are? Do you have any idea what an asshole you've been to me? I've suffered so much because of you. And you think one flimsy apology will get you forgiveness? Lauren, wait, calm down. How can I calm down under such circumstances? You cheat on your wife and sell the house without asking. And to top it all off, you want me to be your housekeeper? You've got to be kidding me. I'm not stupid to let you take advantage of me. I don't need another piece of shit like you. I don't want you in my life anymore. So, get out of my sight. I ended the call and immediately blocked my husband's contact information. All that remained was to divorce this scumbag of a husband. After that, Brody apologized to the Patterson. But they are on my side. They said they would sue him if he didn't pay for the land. Finally, Brody brought the land from my father, and the problem was solved. I hired a lawyer to file a claim against Brody and his partner for the alimony. In addition, I demanded child support from him. He had to move out of the Hilton, of course. He and his mistress seemed to broke up. Mr. Patterson made my husband's affair known to the company. The mistress resigned because she couldn't take it anymore. Brody became distant from everyone around him and completely isolated. However, he had accumulated a lot of payments, so he cannot quit the company. For some time to come, almost all of his income will be used to pay his bills. He will not be able to live a life of freedom for some time to come. I, on the other hand, went back to my parents' house right after that. I explained the situation to the company, and they made me work remotely, so I was able to return to work without incident. There will be times in the future when my children will be inconvenienced by their father's absence. Even so, I want to raise them with a lot of love and care.
My husband takes his 5-month-old niece home for me to take care of, but she was really a...
We're taking care of my niece, starting today.
Huh? What did you just say?
I said we're taking care of my niece here. You are a housewife, so you can take care of her too. Okay? When my husband came home, I found the baby, his niece, in his arms. She's not very expressive, and even though she's only 5 months old, she doesn't drink much milk. When I asked him how my sister-in-law was taking care of her, he just said that I have to figure it out on my own. After a while, I called my mother-in-law to get her contact information. What she told me was something unexpected. I see. So, that's what it is. I finally understood what was going on. I'm his wife, and he's taking advantage of me. I'll show him what I can do. My name is Chloe. Before I was married to my husband Justin, I was a daycare teacher. I resigned from my job when I got married, and now I support my husband as a housewife. My husband Justin works for a startup company and leaves the house at 7 a.m. every morning. I thought that if possible, I wanted to continue working, save money until we have children. However, 1 month before we were to get married, he suddenly said, "Chloe, I'm sorry if this is selfish or me, but if we get married, will you quit your job and become a housewife?"
What? A housewife? Why?
"So you can focus on things around the house. I can work even harder if I'm comfortable at home."
Well, I think we should both keep working until we have kids.
I know, but I want my wife to stay at home. I'll give you enough money every month. So, what do you say?
There was no space for me to say no, because he was so serious. I always liked doing housework to begin with, so I just said yes. That's how I ended up becoming a full-time housewife upon my marriage. 2 years has passed since then, and for the second time in a row, I haven't received the money from my husband. I decided to talk to him about it over dinner. "Hey, I need to pay the rent soon, and I'm thinking of going to the hairdresser tomorrow. So, can I have the money for this month?"
Oh, about that?
Can you manage it with half the amount from now on? What? Why?
Well, my salary has gone down a little, so I can only give you less.
Is that so? How long?
I don't know. Just hold on for the time being, right? It should get back to normal soon.
Okay, got it. After that, even though I tried, I have to dip into my savings frequently. One day, I began to feel uncomfortable with my husband's behavior. At first, it didn't bother me, and I didn't think anything about it. My husband started working late because he wanted to increase his salary.
He always came home before 7 p.m. But these days, he would always come home after 11 p.m. And then one day, my husband didn't come home until after midnight. I was so worried that I called him, but he didn't answer the phone at all. He had never been this unresponsive before. What if it was an accident? A bad premonition came over me and my heart started to beat faster. If he doesn't come home by tomorrow morning, I'll call the police. Just as I was thinking that, I heard the front door open. I went running to the door as fast as I could to make sure my husband was safe. But then, my eyes were caught by an extraordinary sight. What? What is that baby? In my husband's arms was a tiny baby. I guess she was around 6 months old. But why would he be holding a baby? I had no clue. As I was totally puzzled, my husband said something I couldn't believe. "This is my niece. She's my sister's baby. We're going to take care of her from today." What? What did you just say? I said we are taking care of her here. Her name is Willow. She's 5 months old, I think. I'm counting on you, Chloe. Hold on. Wait a minute. I don't understand this. My husband suddenly came home with a 5-month-old baby in his arm. He said she's my sister-in-law's child. But I believe my sister-in-law followed her husband on his job transfer and is now living in California. I had no idea what was going on. So I asked for an explanation. Hey, please, explain it to me. I thought your sister was in California for her husband's work. Well, I heard they got divorced. Divorced? Really? She came to our wedding with her husband. They seemed to get along so well. Getting a divorce when the baby is still 5 months old? Don't ask me. I'm not them, you know. Anyway, my sister's divorced now and came back here for work. So she wants us to take care of Willow until her salary is stable. Oh my gosh. I don't know. Is this for real? Wait, what about your mom? Would it be easier for your sister and the baby to stay with your parents? Then my husband opened his mouth with a stuttering voice and an expression of displeasure on his face. Actually, my sister hasn't told her parents about the divorce yet. She said she will tell them herself when she gets settled. What? But that doesn't mean we have to take care of the baby, right? I know, but my sister is getting through a tough time. Besides, she left Willow with us for a reason. What do you mean? You were a daycare teacher, weren't you? So, you are good with babies, right? And you are a housewife now. You have free time during the day. What's that supposed to mean? I have free time because I'm a housewife? I don't get it. You know what I mean? Come on, Chloe. Here. My husband forced me to have the baby and snuck into the house. I thought we were going to talk about what to do now, but he started drinking beer without a care in the world. Justin, are you kidding me? I raised my voice and my niece Willow started to cry aloud. My husband didn't seem to help me at all, so I asked him in frustration. Hey, where are the diapers? She's crying. I'll change her diaper and give her some milk. What's that? I don't bring anything. Huh? You didn't keep any of her baby stuff from your sister? I don't think so. Are you kidding me? Then what the hell are you going to do with it? I don't know. My husband got upset and kept drinking his beer. I had no choice but to leave my niece with my husband and run to the 24-hour drugstore. I got her some diapers, baby formula, bottles, and wipes. Her skin looked so dry. I thought she might need some moisturizer too. I put them all in a basket and went through the checkout counter. I hurried home, changed her diaper, fed her, and gave her a bath. And she finally calmed down. I used to be a daycare teacher, so I can take care of the baby, okay. But I was still confused with the situation. At that point, it was already past midnight. While I was giving Willow a bath, my husband already went to bed. The next morning, when I saw that Willow was asleep, I woke my husband up. "Hey, Justin, wake up." "Huh? What is it?" "I was late last night. I need more sleep." "Don't be silly. It's your day off. Willow needs some clothes. She doesn't have anything to put on. I'll go get them. So, watch her, okay?" "What? Why?" "It's getting colder. Why is she wearing only underwear?" "Don't tell me. My sister gave her to me like that. Don't be irresponsible. Anyway, I'll get her some in a hurry. So, don't let her out of your sight." I told my husband, who was still in bed, and I hurried to a nearby shopping mall. There I bought some clothes and toys and hurried home again. As I opened the front door, I heard Willow's cries. I rushed to the living room and found Willow on the sofa, crying hysterically. My husband was standing next to her, fiddling with his phone. He was enjoying watching a video alone, without paying attention to Willow's crying. "What are you doing, Justin?" "She suddenly started crying." "Why do you leave her alone then? You know she's crying so much. Don't you care enough to hold her and calm her down? Why are you so angry? It's not a big deal. Now that you're home, give her some milk." "Huh? Don't make me do everything. I'm paying for everything out of my savings. Not only today, but for the past few months. Will you give me that money back?" "Well, that's enough. This situation is ridiculous. I'll talk to your sister directly. Give me her contact. I'm a former childcare worker, but there are some things I don't know. How much milk she drinks, how much sleep she gets, and what kind of things she likes. If I'm going to take care of Willow, I at least want to meet her needs and treat her responsibly. In order to do that, I need to know how my sister-in-law treated her. But when I asked my husband for her contact information, he refused to give it to me. After all, he became a little angry and he yelled at me. "Why do you have to ask my sister? Think for yourself." "What? Are you being serious? Willow is now in a place she's not used to. It's only fair to ask her mother what her lifestyle was like." "I don't give a shit about that. Regular feedings and diaper changes. That's all you need to know. Anyway, just do whatever you have to do until my sister comes to get her." "Seriously? What the hell, Justin?" My husband sighed loudly and got up from the sofa. He grabbed his wallet and phone and walked out of the house. Unbelievable. So irresponsible. What is he thinking? When he was the one who took her home here. I need to take care of my niece in a safe and secure environment. I decided to contact my mother-in-law for help. Although my husband said she still didn't know about my sister-in-law's divorce, now is not the time to worry about that. After taking care of Willow and putting her to bed, I called my mother-in-law. "Hello? Hi, it's me, Chloe." "Oh, hi, Chloe. It's been a while." Willow, who had been sleeping, let out a small cry in response to my voice. My mother-in-law heard it and opened her mouth in surprise. "Chloe, I just heard a baby crying. I'm sorry. That's why I called you today. I have some questions I'd like to ask you about this baby, Willow. Can you tell me your daughter's contact information? My daughter? I wonder what the baby has to do with my daughter. What? Because Willow is her child? That's what Justin said when he brought her home. No, that can't be true. My daughter has a girl, but she's already 3 years old. And my daughter's family is on an overseas trip. What? My mother-in-law's words messed up my mind. It's too different from what my husband told me. Oh, is your daughter divorced? When I asked her the most important question, she denied it with surprise. Divorced? No way. They just visited here last month for vacation. There's no way she's divorced. At the moment, the trust I had built up with my husband began to collapse. Everything he said about this niece was a lie. At the same time, I had a lot of bad thoughts in my head. My mother-in-law seemed to feel the same way and asked me in a trembling voice, Chloe, then Justin brought the baby with him, right? And he told you it was his niece. Oh my gosh. I know. I'm sorry. I think I need to do some research. I don't expect the result would be very good. I know. I heard you. I'll keep my mouth shut until we know what we're dealing with. After I finished talking to my mother-in-law, I hurried to check the detective agency. With Willow there, I couldn't take the time to visit the agency in person. So I found out that I could request an investigation remotely. I immediately requested a background check on my husband. For a few weeks, I kept my composure. My husband was always home after midnight, as if he didn't want to see me. A week later, a representative from the agency came to my house with the result of the investigation. The result was something I had expected, of course. Sure enough, my husband was having an affair, and every night, on his way home from work, he would stop by his partner's house. The detective told me that Willow was probably the child of the affair. My husband took advantage of the fact that I used to be a daycare teacher and left Willow with me because he didn't want the child to be disturbed. I couldn't stop being angry at my husband's selfish and despicable behavior. I waited for him to come home that day until after midnight. A few hours later, my husband showed up. I took the opportunity to say to him, "Welcome home. Did you enjoy your time with your mistress?" What? What did you say? Mistress? What are you talking about? I already know everything. What the? I confronted him with the photo evidence of the affair. I could see his face turn pale and he was obviously upset. When did you take those pictures? I called your mother to get your sister's contact information. She surprised me. Your sister has not divorced, and she's currently abroad with her 3-year-old daughter. No. This is... What? She's not divorced and she doesn't have a 5-month-old daughter? Is that right? Willow is yours, isn't she? You and mistresses. Wait a minute. I'm being careful, you know? She tricked me. He was making up excuses, as if it's not his fault. She was the one who came on to me. I was just having fun. Nothing serious. I don't even know if Willow is really mine. My husband told me that in no uncertain terms and asked for my forgiveness. I was so disgusted by him that I felt nausea welling up inside me. I said to him forcefully, You've got to be kidding me. You don't know if she's yours or not? Don't be irresponsible. Then get a DNA test or something and prove it. I'm telling you, even if it wasn't your child, I won't forgive you. You cheated on me and betrayed me. Chloe, calm down. No, there's nothing more to talk. You betrayed not only me, but also your mother and sister. I apologize. I'm sorry. So please calm down. Why should I calm down? You and your mistress don't even understand any parental responsibilities. My husband keeps apologizing over and over again with tears in his eyes. But it doesn't change my mind. This man has done the worst thing to me, his wife. It took a long time, but I divorced my husband. I also demanded alimony from his mistress and received a lump sum payment. Justin and his mistress got into debt because of the alimony. Because of that, they started arguing a lot, and eventually, they terminated the relationship. Of course, his mother and sister didn't offer him any help. He lied and cheated on his wife and made her take care of the baby he made with another woman. No woman could forgive him for what he's done. As for Willow, she was taking care of at her mother's parents' house. When I was saying goodbye to her, Willow smiled at me for the first time. She's the child of my husband and the woman with whom he had an affair. Normally, I would have felt hatred for her, but strangely enough, I didn't. The child was innocent. It's the cheater who is to blame. I'm divorced and living alone now, but I still think of Willow from time to time. There may be times in the future when Willow will be in trouble because her parents are not around. But I hope that she will grow up strong and resilient in the face of hardship. That's all I can hope for now.
My husband insulted my family for having low educational backgrounds.
I am in the most desperate moment of my life. I'm shaking with every ounce of blood in my body. I can't even bring myself to cry. I look up fearfully with a stiff face. In front of me are the divorce papers, and my husband with a worried smile on his face, insulting me and my parents. I knew I deserved a woman who was highly educated and classy. At least not a woman who inherited her parents' genes from a middle school graduate. You are useless. You are nothing but a piece of trash to me. You are a high school graduate with no job, a middle school graduate father who works for a company I've never heard of, and an unemployed mother with no job. I'm not going to support this family with my hard-earned money. My husband's attitude changed as soon as we got married. He only thinks of me as an outlet for his stress. But I still believed in him. Taking care of the house was the only thing I could do for him. But one word from me led to the end of our relationship. It must have been humiliating for him to be confronted by me, a high school graduate, no matter what. How did this happen? All I wanted was to make a happy family. In spite of my apologies, I knew that the husband I loved was gone. Anger, sadness, hopelessness. I was still in tears, unable to sort out my feelings. At that time, I knew nothing. I didn't know what would happen to my pathetic husband, who could only judge people by their educational background. My name is Kara. My dream has always been to be a mother. From my early age, I looked up to my own mother. I wanted to get married as soon as possible, have children, and become the ideal mother. In the morning, I would wake up my husband and children, who slept late. I would prepare a delicious breakfast for them and make sure they had plenty to eat. I soak up the happiness of watching them and see them off with a smile. I would clean the house, prepare snacks for the kids, and think about what to have for dinner. When my husband comes home, we all take a bath and eat dinner together, kissing the kids goodnight and going to sleep every night so they don't get anxious. This is the kind of life I dreamed of. I talked about this with all the boyfriends I've ever had. If I got married in the future, they all said it was too much for them and dumped me. That's understandable. I guess they thought I was naive, that they couldn't be that responsible. But I never gave up on my dream. I kept being honest with them. Then I met Evan at a party I was invited to by chance.
Kara, I think your dream is awesome. I'm the type of guy who wants my wife to focus on housework when I get married. I will be too happy if I had a lovely wife like you, Kara, waiting for me at home with kids.
I felt I was destined to be with this man who smiled at me like that. Soon, we started dating. I found him to be very fun and reliable. That there were some things that made him seem a little obsessive. One time when I served him a meal at my house,
maybe a little too much carbs. I like to eat more protein, you know? Put that in mind next time, okay?
And one day when we were out taking a walk together, a kid bumps into him and the kid apologized.
Hey, did you play in the sandbox? Damn, I got a little dirty. Don't worry, kid. I'm not gonna ask you to bring your parents over.
But some adults can be really scary, you know?
You better watch out. Got it?
I felt my husband was a bit mean in the way he said it, but I believed he was a nice, kind, and reliable guy. I decided to marry him after 6 months of knowing him. My father had a somewhat unconvinced look on his face. My mother agreed, saying if it would make me happy. My husband's parents accepted me as well. We got married and became a couple. I quit my job and spent every day doing housework. Every day, I was living my dream. I accepted all his criticism of my cooking and housework as great advice for a happy marriage. However, I began to think in a corner of my mind that maybe love is blind, or maybe it was a little too soon to marry him.
Kara, I'm home. I'm exhausted. My parents, my business partner complained to me again. It's really pissing me off. When I complained about it, my junior colleague said it was my fault too. What a jerk.
I see. It must have been tough. Thank you for working every day. Please tell me whatever you want. I'm a good listener, you know.
What? No, you don't know anything about having a job, do you? It's not like you've been in a business much. Oh, my bad. You have been in the business longer than me. You started working after graduating from high school. Sorry.
There he goes again. Ever since we got married, my husband has always made fun of me for having a high school diploma. My parents had prepared for my college education, but I wanted to return my favor to my parents by working hard and becoming an independent member of society. My husband graduated from a well-known university with high standards. He has been bragging about his high education ever since we started dating. He was also very proud of the big company he was working for. Working for a prestigious company is something you can't do without hard work. So I respected him for that. That's why I married him. And when we were dating, He didn't disrespect me that much. My husband must be under a lot of stress.
Well, since you are a stay-at-home wife, I'll teach you what it's like working in a huge company.
With that, my husband blurted out his complaints. In short, he said that his subordinates and the people in charge of his clients pointed out the mistake he made, and he didn't like the fact that they were all younger than him.
They've got a lot of nerve taking shots at me.
My husband's only been with the company for 3 years, so he's not that much older than them. That's what I thought as I listened.
Hey, are you listening to me? I'm trying to talk to you even though I'm tired. Can't you even make conversation pleasant?
I'm listening. I'm sorry. But they are almost the same age as you, aren't they? I just thought you could improve each other's as a team, you know?
What? Why are you giving me an opinion? Why are you talking over me like I'm not good enough?
That's not what I meant.
You should be thankful that I married you, even though you only graduated from high school. Don't you know how to respect your husband?
I regretted that I said anything to him. Whenever I say something he doesn't like, he verbally attacks me. As you can imagine, I'm getting a little tired of it. My father's face suddenly flashed through my mind. My husband grimaced and said something even more unforgivable.
Well, a middle school graduate like your father can only produce such a foolish daughter. A middle school graduate can only work at a local small business. Your dad's pathetic. Isn't he about to retire, isn't he? Do small businesses offer retirement benefits? I can't see myself living a life of normal people with just a little money. Well, don't worry. Mine is a big company. I'm getting a big retirement bonus.
Enough! You can make fun of me all you want, but please don't make fun of my father. I know you are under a lot of stress, but don't make it on me. I never get angry no matter what he says to me. But when he said that about my father, I lost my temper. I couldn't allow him to insult my father, who had worked so hard for the family. I said what I wanted to say and ran out of the house with my cell phone. The word divorce crossed my mind. But the crisp winter air cleared my anger-driven mind a little. I wanted to hear my voice father. I wanted to hear my father's voice. So I tried to call him, but I was afraid that I might worry him. I walked around in a daze, worrying. I found myself a long way from home. I will apologize to my husband when I get home. We've only been married for a few months. The fight we had today is just a blimp in what will be a long future. Something much worse could happen. I can't marry anyone if I'm thinking about getting divorced over something like this. When I arrived home, my husband was already asleep. Tomorrow is his day off, and I will make him all the meals he likes. And I would apologize. With that thought, I also went to sleep. In the morning, my husband woke up and left with a grumpy look on his face. He didn't mention what had happened yesterday, but I guess he was still feeling awkward. As I was making lunch, thinking about how I should apologize again, he came home. Hi, honey. I'm sorry. I was so rude to you yesterday. I'll make you a lot of your favorite dishes today, so feel free to request anything.
Whatever. Sit down. We need to talk.
Then he quickly put a piece of paper in front of me. What? Isn't this?
Yeah. You recognize it. It's a divorce petition. Yesterday, it became clear to me that you and I don't match.
I felt a chill as if all the blood in my body had drained out of me. Had I been so hard on my husband that he wanted a divorce? I couldn't say anything, so I kept silent, and he opened his mouth.
I've been thinking about it, since you left yesterday. I knew that a high school graduate wife with a middle school graduate parents who works for a small business was no match for me. I married you because you were kind of cute, and I thought you would be at my beck and call. But I didn't realize you were such a useless one. I tried to talk, but I couldn't speak.
I should have gotten down on my knees and asked him to forgive me. I shouldn't have said anything back. As if to push me away, my husband continued.
Well, I'm sure there are more intelligent and refined women out there who are more suitable for me. Don't worry about me. I'll remarry soon. You will have a hard time now that I'm no longer your breadwinner. You are a high school graduate with no job, with a middle school graduate father and an unemployed mother. I don't want to have to support a bottom-feeding family like this with the money I earn.
My husband smirked and fluttered the divorce papers in front of me.
You should look up divorce procedures on the internet. You could at least do that, right? Oh, I'll give you the house. It's in your name anyway. Bye.
With that, he left with his belongings, which were probably already packed. My head is all messed up. I don't know what to do anymore. All I wanted was to get married, have children, and live happily ever after. I just wanted my father to see his grandchildren. I don't know how I got into this mess. I looked at the untouched meal I had prepared for my husband and cried out loud. I felt so hopeless. If I could go back to yesterday's fight, I would. I should have smiled and listened to him like I always do. I clutched the divorce papers and cried for a long time. After all, my husband didn't come home. After a few days, when I felt a little better, I started to look into divorce proceedings. I went back to my parents' house for the time being. While I was in a daze, I received a call on my cell phone.
Oh, Kara? Can I meet your father? I'd like to talk to him. I didn't know that the company he works for was so famous.
I knew it. He called. I was just thinking over the past few days that my ex-husband must be in a lot of trouble right now. The company my father works for is a long-established local publicity traded company that's pretty well known in the area. It just so happened that my father and a friend from work were talking about my divorce. I had mentioned my ex-husband's behavior towards me as a topic of conversation. Sure enough, my father's friends who were close to us were offended. They even contacted me out of concern. The rumor kept spreading, and to my surprise, they reached the company where my ex-husband worked. It was affecting my ex-husband's position at the company. I heard that he was trying to make me the bad guy about this divorce. But when the board members heard the rumors and confronted him, he relented and told them the truth. My ex-husband was even considered for disciplinary action by the company. I was sure he would come crying to me. But I didn't care about my ex-husband anymore. I was more impressed by my father's ability to build relationships with integrity. I had a newfound respect for him. My father was the one who was most surprised, actually.
So, I am in trouble. You understand it, right? Your husband, the man you love so much, is in trouble. If your father would just talk to me, this will all be over. And then we'll be together again. And if you want, You can bring your father to live with us, you know. We'll make it as good as it was, if not better. You want me with you, don't you? No one's gonna take you, a high school graduate, and an employed woman like you, anyway. What? What are you talking about? First of all, we are divorced. We're already strangers. Wouldn't it be great if you lose your job, you don't have to make any mistakes, and people won't point them out? You're not gonna be under any stress. Good for you. And I have a job, you know. I'm making a good living, thank you very much. I don't have to care about your stupid idea of educational backgrounds. And I don't have to be made fun of anymore. I am very content every day. I mean, why don't you rely on the person you are cheating on me with? I'm not the one you should rely on, am I? What are you talking about? My ex-husband got flustered and clumped up. The day my ex-husband confronted me for the divorce paper and left me, after I had cried a lot, it occurred to me. He left me so easy. It was a woman's intuition or some kind of a gut feeling. I wondered if there was a possibility that he was cheating on me. I immediately hired a private detective. Soon after, they found a lot of evidence, and I decided to divorce him. I prepared everything I could to get everything I could. Anyway, I know all about it. I'm going to file a claim for alimony against you and your partner. Moreover, if you are going to ask for a favor, you should have a way of asking for it. Well, I guess you are the type of person who can't do that. I don't want to be with someone like that. It's a waste of my time. Why did I hang on to this guy? If I could go back in time, I would like to slap myself for letting you deceive me like that. What the hell, Kara? Who do you think you are? It's all your father's fault for being a middle school graduate. Don't talk to me like that. I'll sue you for libel. Don't underestimate me. Prepare yourself. With that, he hung up. That night, my ex-husband visited my parents' house. My ex-husband started cursing my father and me and making a scene. My mother called the police and submitted the recording I had made. When my ex-husband called me earlier that day, my mother told me to record it. That was immediately reported to my ex-husband's company, and he was dismissed from his job. When I asked for alimony at that time, my ex-husband came to my parents' house again and went on a rampage. He was taken to the police again for vandalism and was finally charged. He won't be able to get out for a while. After a while, I bought an apartment with the money that had been paid to me. My parents took the opportunity to sell the house and move into a nice apartment as well. Retirement benefits are just a system. Not a few companies don't offer it. My mother, not knowing what the future would bring, started building assets early on. When she came to realize it, it was a considerable amount of assets. I think it's foolish to assume that people don't have money just because of their educational backgrounds. Even if your father retires, it won't matter at all. We have plenty of savings, my mother said with a big smile on her face. Not only my father, but also my mother is great. What wonderful parents I was blessed with. It is fact that my marriage was a failure. But if you ask me if it was all misfortune, it wasn't. I learned a life lesson. I can't even think about marriage right now. But if I meet a wonderful person someday, I hope to make a wonderful couple like my father and mother.
My daughter was rushed to the emergency room after a car accident. They say she ran out onto the road unexpectedly, but for one, I can't believe it. She's a very cautious girl. She was in a comatose state, and it was doubtful she would survive. I was praying to God for her safety, but my husband seems unconcerned that our daughter was in danger. He even started talking about money in case she passed away. My husband's attitude made me distrust him. Then, our daughter miraculously regained consciousness. Yet, in the midst of my joy, she confessed something to me. You know, my dad. Hearing this, all the relatives would later become furious. My name is Francis. I'm 35 years old. I work hard every day as a company employee. My family consists of my husband Tony and my 80-year-old daughter Eva. We lived in a house together. I met Tony at a drinking party in a club I joined in college. We happened to be sitting next to each other and had a chance to talk. He was a bit of a goofball, but had a cheerful sense of humor, and he had many friends, both male and female. I really enjoyed talking with him too. We hit it off right away and started dating. We continued our relationship after college and got married 9 years ago and had a beautiful daughter. Tony and I are happily married. I have never had a fight with him. We lived happily ever after, or at least I thought so. My daughter Eva looks and acts exactly like me. Even when she was a baby, my relatives used to say she looked like me. As she grew older, she became more and more like me. My parents would say things like, "It's like Frances is back from when she was a little girl." At first, I thought it was just their patronizing comment. But then, I checked my parents' photo album. I found that Eva looked exactly the same as I did when I was a kid. Even my mother's friends joked that we looked like identical twins. But while Eva certainly looked like me, she was smarter than I was. She was speaking quite well at the age of 2, and she could read and write at an early age than the other children. Eva had many friends at school because of her kindness and leadership qualities. I may be a foolish parent, but Eva was smart and bright, and I loved her very much. Tony, on the other hand, seems to be unhappy about something with such a daughter, because one day, he jokingly said to me,
It's kind of like having two Frances. She doesn't look anything like me. I wonder if she's really mine. I don't think she's that cute.
His words offended me. I mean, if you're proud of your children's excellence, but to say she's not cute, what the hell kind of an idea is that? I was glad Eva was asleep when he said that, but she would have been absolutely heartbroken to find out that her father thought of her that way. And I didn't like the way he made it sound like I was cheating on him. So I argued with him. What a thing to say! She's our child, so don't say such a terrible thing about her not being cute. And what's this, are you sure it's mine? What the heck? Can you even tell the difference between what you're allowed to say and what you're not allowed to say? Tony must have realized that I was really angry, because he rushed to defend himself.
I'm just kidding. Don't get so seriously angry. I'm sorry. I won't say it again.
Tony apologized, and I forgave him for the moment. I felt a little sorry that I had gotten a little angry too. But later on, I wondered. I wondered why I didn't scrutinize Tony's comment more at that time. I would regret it. Tony also works as an office worker, so we are both very busy. We have been sharing the household chores since the beginning of our marriage, and have been doing well. However, he told me that his company's business was in a slump. In order to fix it, Tony has become even busier. Overtime work has increased, and working on holidays is commonplace. Plus, his salary and bonus were cut drastically. It was not unusual for Tony to have to stay overnight at work, and so his time at work was drastically reduced. I don't think it's fair to overwork employees this much, no matter how bad the economy is. I suggested to my husband that he change jobs.
I've worked for this company for many years, and I want to support them. I'm sorry for the trouble I've caused you, but I can't just walk away when my boss and my coworkers are working so hard. The company's economy is going to pick up in a little while, so please bear with me for a while longer.
I understand why he doesn't want to part ways with his boss and coworkers, so I couldn't say no to Tony's desperate request. I had to work more overtime on my end because my husband was paying me less money for us to live on. I don't stay overnight like he does, but I still get home late. I like my job, and I'm doing it at my own pace, so it's not a problem. But Ever spends more time with the sitter, so I feel sorry for her. I'm sorry, Ever. Mom and Dad have been busy. When we get some time off, we'll go somewhere together as a family. I said this to Ever, as if I was trying to explain myself, but she never blamed me. Mom, I'm a strong girl, so I will be fine, and I'm proud of you and Dad for working so hard. My daughter tries to cheer me up like that, even though she must be lonely. She's just like me, in the way that I'm always thinking of others to the point that I start losing weight. I felt bad that she had to put up with everything, so I decided to give her a present. I bought Eva a smartphone. A smartphone might be a little too early for an 8-year-old, but my daughter was good with electronics. She could use my computer, my phone, and look things up. Maybe she has a talent in that direction. I figured that if she had her phone when I was away from home, we should be able to have a conversation online, even if I couldn't reply right away. Predictably, my daughter was overjoyed when I gave her the phone. I know it cost you a lot of money, Mom, but I'm glad. Thank you. Eva's smile made me happy too. Up until that moment, I had thought of the house as a busy but fun place to live. So I had no idea that such a big event would happen. I was working overtime at work that day. I was working, sighing and thinking how busy I was when my phone rang. It was the hospital calling.
Your daughter has been rushed to the hospital.
I was shocked to hear this information, and my mind went blank. In case of emergency, Eva carries a note with my phone number on it and keeps it in her bag. That's why the hospital called me right away. I told my boss what had happened and immediately took a cab to the hospital. When I arrived at the hospital, a nurse explained the details to me. She told me that she was driving along when she saw my daughter suddenly run out into the driveway. I didn't quite believe her story. Eva is a very cautious person, and it would never occur to her to run out into the road. However, the woman didn't seem to be lying. According to her story, it looked like someone pushed her out of the way. There are a lot of things to think about, but first of all, I just want my daughter to be safe. I was hoping that she would survive. That's all I could ask for. According to the doctors involved in the examination and treatment, my daughter had been hit on the head and was in a critical condition unconscious. They said it was a 50-50 chance that she would survive, and that there was a possibility that she might not regain consciousness.
Please be prepared for any emergency.
When he told me that, I fell to the ground in shock. Why should my precious daughter have to go through this? A little later, Tony arrived at the hospital. When I explained to him about my daughter's situation, he looked down with a despairing expression on his face.
Oh no, maybe something was troubling her, because why would she run out into the road on her own?
I don't know. What to do, Tony? If she doesn't wake up, I will.
Don't lose heart. I hope Eva survives, but if she's unconscious, you might want to prepare yourself.
I don't know if I'm losing my mind, but Tony said he was ready to give up. That's when I noticed something. I thought I saw a grin on Tony's face before he turned his head. I thought it was an optical illusion or my imagination, and forced myself to forget it. Later, my parents-in-law, my brother and sisters-in-law came to the hospital to pray for my daughter's safety. We all waited in the waiting room and in the hallway, hoping that she would regain consciousness. But the next day, Eva did not regain consciousness. I was depressed, but my relatives encouraged me, saying, "It's going to be okay, and you have to stay strong." I somehow managed to pull myself together. Eva was on the brink of death, and there was no way I was going to give up now. Eventually, it was decided that it was going to be a long day, so I decided to get our bags ready. The relatives disbanded for the time being, and I was left alone with Tony at the hospital. Then, he said something I couldn't believe.
Eva is not going to make it, and now I don't have to pay child support. I'm going to take this opportunity to make this very clear, Francis. I want a divorce.
With that, he offered me divorce papers with his signature on it. I was aghast at the offer, which was so sudden. Huh? What are you talking about all of a sudden? Eva might still be alive. And what the hell is this divorce thing all of a sudden? You've never acted like that before. In response to my question, Tony said,
I've been thinking about it for a while.
Does he have any idea how insane he sounds under the circumstances?
I can't see you as a lady anymore. You are too serious for my taste. I'm not sure we can make it as a couple anymore.
There was something in his words that stuck with me. Is it possible that you love someone else?
I want to marry her, but I don't want to pay alimony and child support.
Is that why you're asking for a divorce at this point?
Well, that's not it. I just simply felt I couldn't go on living with you.
Tony denies it, but his eyes are looking from side to side, and it's obvious he's lying. I was tempted to pursue this or that, but now was not the time. Right now, we need to pray for Eva's safety first and foremost. Let's talk about the divorce later, because right now, all I want to think about is Eva.
That's what you're trying to get away with, isn't it? I won't be fooled. Now sign these papers.
The relatives returned just as Tony was pressing me to do so. Tony rushed to put the divorce papers back in his bag. Apparently, he didn't want his relatives to hear about the divorce. I decided to go through with it because it was convenient for me. All that mattered now was Eva's safety. Please, God, please save Eva. Perhaps my prayers were answered, because on the third day, she miraculously regained consciousness. My family and I wept and rejoiced, but Tony was pale and trembling. At that moment, he muttered to himself,
Oh no, I didn't think.
My husband's mumbling were so small that only I, standing nearby, could hear them. Why was he so upset? I would later discover the reason in my daughter's words. Eva's eyes were vacant, so I desperately asked her, Are you all right? She stared at me for a moment, and then told me something. Mom, Dad pushed me into the road. Everyone in the hospital room froze at Eva's sudden revelation. and we all looked at Tony. He could not say anything. He was only shaking. From the way he looked, he knew his daughter was telling the truth. Furthermore, Eva wanted me to take the phone in her bag, so I took it out. She instructed me to check the audio with the recording function, and I did as she instructed. Then, suddenly I heard Tony's excited voice.
I enjoyed our last date, Michelle. You're such a cutie. I'd stay with you forever if I didn't have a wife and daughter in the way.
It was a voice that clearly indicated Tony was cheating on me. According to my daughter, she heard her dad talking to the woman he was cheating on me with at home and immediately recorded it. Eva then confronted Tony. Do you have someone else you like besides Mom? Tony stared at Eva with a scary look on his face.
Don't ever tell Mom. If you do, you will be in big trouble.
I stared at Tony when I heard that. What the hell is wrong with you?
Hey, Eva, it's a crime to record people talking without their permission. And Francis, did you buy your kid a smartphone? She's not ready for that yet, so don't spoil her.
Tony is trying so hard to change the subject. Of course I'm not fooled. Huh? Don't play games with me. Spit out the facts. I yelled at him, and Tony started making excuses for cheating on me.
No, I wasn't cheating. I was just talking on the phone with a colleague at work.
I don't care about that. Now I'm asking if you pushed Eva.
Well, I wouldn't do that, would I?
Tony tries to make excuses, but he's clearly acting suspiciously. His relatives are also looking at him with wide eyes, as if they too find Tony's behavior suspicious. My father and father-in-law are especially furious.
You son of a...
He punches Tony in the face, and the rest of the relatives yelled at him. I can't believe you did that to your own daughter. You even cheated on your wife. Holding his beaten face, my husband started to cry and began to make excuses for the affair.
I wanted to marry Michelle. She's 10 years younger than me. She's young and she's hot. It cost a lot of money to date her.
This I later found out. Michelle is indeed young and pretty, but she's quite a scatterbrain. Tony lied about the company's business downturn so that he could go out with her. He was paying for her. I questioned him further. If I'd found out about the affair, you'd have to pay alimony in the divorce. So you hid the affair from me, huh?
It's bad enough that Terp app found out. You should have kept your mouth shut, but you recorded it.
But you're trying to kill my daughter. You are out of your mind. But he refuses to admit that he tried to kill his daughter.
Eva is lying. I wouldn't have pushed my own daughter into the driveway, would I? I'm not that evil. And I don't think anyone would believe on an 8-year-old kid like that.
You are a coward to the end of the line to get away with it after all this time. My fists shake with anger. If that's what you want, I will do the same. I stood before him in an imposing manner. I heard where Eva had her accident. It's a pretty big street, and there are surveillance cameras all over the place these days for security. More and more cars have dash cams. Tony was puzzled by my sudden remark, but I didn't care. I continued. I'm sure the police are checking the security cameras. If they don't find out anything, I will make a post on social media about that area, and to see if the dashcam caught your behavior. This is where Tony went pale. If you want, I will check out every store on the main street. I will show them your picture and ask them, have you seen this guy? Then, we'll get to the bottom of it. Tony got panicky when I told him that.
Don't do this!
Then, He started crying and telling me what happened.
Michelle threatened to tell the company about the affair if I didn't marry her. If Eva was gone, they would never find out about the affair, and I wouldn't have to pay alimony and child support. That's what I thought.
I stared coldly at Tony, who looked desperate. How could this man risk Eva's life for his self-preservation?
I'm breaking up with Michelle, and I will work hard for you from now on. So please don't call the police.
With these words, he finally lost it. What? How can I forgive you? I can't believe you would put your own daughter in an accident for the sake of your unfaithful partner. How can you say, please don't divorce me or please don't tell the police?
That's because
I'm going to report you to the police. Of course, I'm divorcing you, and I'm getting alimony and child support. You are a disgusting person and a terrible father. Don't you ever come near me or ever again. Tony is sobbing on the floor, looking miserable, but no one was there to help him. Tony was later arrested, convicted, and sent to prison. I signed Tony's divorce papers and filed for alimony against him and Michelle, the woman he had been having an affair with. I also demanded child support. Tony's portion would be paid by my in-laws on his behalf. They said they will make sure he pays them back when he gets out of prison. But even if he gets out, Tony will have a tough future ahead of him. Michelle resigned from her job after the company found out about the affair. She also owes money to her parents and has been paying me alimony. Her parents disowned her, and she's having a hard time making ends meet. She's now living in a cheap apartment and working part-time. I, on the other hand, have returned to my parents' house and I'm living a peaceful life. Eva is recovering well and was discharged from the hospital. Now I'm raising Eva with the help of my parents' support. I will continue to gently watch over my smart daughter's growth.